Action News Jax special coverage tracking Dorian.
And surf conditions. Now is the time to shelter in place. We will be feeling the impact of this storm starting tonight and into tomorrow evening.
Jacksonville Mayor Lenny Curry telling people the time to evacuate has passed. Right now, Hurricane Dorian is scraping its way slowly up our coast, and it could grow stronger as it approaches our latitude. Take a look at this video from the Bahamas. This is what it looked like in Freeport just hours ago. For more than a day, Dorian pounded the area with hours of heavy rain. Here's a woman trying to get out with her dogs, and also dumped several feet of water on the island. And this is the aftermath of the devastation on Abaco Island, where they tried to make some rescues today. The aerial video shows you there's not much left standing, and anything that is standing is underwater. This is special coverage of Hurricane Dorian on CBS47 and FOX30 Action News Jax at 10. I'm Tanika Hughes.
I'm John Bachman. Let's get you caught up on the very latest on Dorian right now. The track of the storm shows it's projected to get as close as 85 miles from Jacksonville as a Category 2 hurricane. That'll take place tomorrow afternoon. There are 7 confirmed deaths in Abaco, but that number is expected to rise by a lot. Rescues are underway, as Tanika mentioned, in Abaco by the U.S. Coast Guard, but they're not able to get to the Grand Bahama Island because of poor conditions there. It's underwater. Action News Jax has complete live team coverage. Our crews stretch from central Florida to southeast Georgia, covering all the angles of the storm. Let's begin, of course, at Action News Jax First Alert Chief Meteorologist Mike Burnish. Mike.
Storm continuing to grow in size, at least, a hurricane, you guys, as Dorian is making its move to the northwest. See how it is spread out? The eye has gotten very wide. We saw this happen in 04's hurricane season with powerful hurricanes that then got close to Florida. Francis and Jean did the same thing. They got very large. Their wind field expanded while the eye did the same thing. And boy, look at that eye, how large it is now. And bands of showers and thunderstorms continue to rotate around the hurricane. 10 o'clock numbers are in on the intensity, and you can see not a whole lot of change. The wind is 110 miles per hour. It's moving to the northwest at 6 miles per hour. That should start to increase that forward speed over the next 12 to 18 hours or so. And the pressure just about steady state. We'll have a whole new suite of numbers and updated forecast track coming out in less than an hour. I wouldn't expect to see big changes in that forecast track, and therefore the impacts for us look to be especially troublesome at the beaches, but there'll be some inland impacts too, especially to Interstate 95 or so, well west, far less in the way of impacts for the most part. So taking it just to the east of Daytona Beach, overnight into early tomorrow morning by 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It's at about St. Augustine's latitude, about to 75 miles to the east, and then about 80 miles east of Jacksonville and Brunswick, as it then turns to the northeast, very near the North and South Carolina coast as it accelerates through the western Atlantic. Here's another view. About 75 miles from St. Simon's Island, the closest approach tomorrow evening. Jekyll Island, about 80 miles away to the eye. Fernandina Beach, 80 miles. Jacksonville Beach, 85 miles. And St. Augustine, about 80 miles. But remember, we've been talking about this a lot the last several days. Don't get too caught up in that cone. That's just simply the uncertainty in the forecast path. That means the skinnier it is, the more certain we are in the forecast. That's good news. Have a pretty good idea where it's going, right? But the potential high winds and damage extend far from the center and well beyond this skinny cone now. They extend, those high winds, all the way to at least I-95 and perhaps Highway 301 in northeast Florida, and then a good portion of the coastal counties of southeastern Georgia. So don't mistake in that cone for meaning that you aren't going to experience hurricane force winds, because you very well may. There's that broad eye on the radar imagery, and bands of very heavy rain and storms on its northwest side that have already been producing some damage in parts of Volusia County, not far from Daytona Beach, toward on I-4 toward Orlando. Most of the metro area, southeast Georgia, northeast Florida too, dry for the moment. We have some heavy rain moving in near and just north of St. Augustine. They'll produce some quick 40 and 50 mile an hour wind gusts as they move quickly off to the south and southwest into Tucoy at 10:13, Federal Point by about 10:20, and into Bostwick by about 10:23. And as these bands move in, that's what's going to start to produce even more flooding across parts of the area, and won't have to be just at high tide, along with the strong and gusty winds that are already picking up steadily this evening. Sustained winds inland at Jacksonville at the International Airport, 18, gusting to 23 miles per hour. But look at Mayport, gusting to 38 miles per hour already. Almost tropical storm force wind gusts at Mayport. In St. Augustine, 21, gusting to 29 miles per hour. We're looking at the window of highest winds pretty much up and down the coast to be early tomorrow morning all the way through about midnight tomorrow night or very early on Thursday morning. Of course, it ends a little earlier but starts a little earlier for St. Augustine and St. Augustine Beach. Here are the winds, the forecast winds sustained anywhere from about 30 to 40 miles per hour with gusts 60 to 70 miles per hour, maybe even higher at the beaches. You get inland and it's a completely different story. Those sustained winds are really not much of a concern for places like, say, Lake City and Waycross. We have model forecasts for this too to show specific numbers based on each model. Stacey will break this down for you.
All right, Mike, thank you. And we'll start out here with Jacksonville Beach. This is a model data of sustained wind speeds. We'll start out with this pink line here. That's our European model, and that is showing that we can expect some of these sustained winds really picking up between about 10 a.m. and lasting through about 10 p.m. of sustained winds between 40 and 60 mile per hour. So that is tropical storm force winds there. GFS is in this yellow here, so that's pretty much lining up with what the European thinks. And then we also have another model that's also insinuating that we'll see some of our highest sustained winds between about 10 o'clock in the morning tomorrow through about 10 o'clock in the evening. We also have sustained or wind gusts, that is, too. So you'll see that these are higher. This is actually trying to say that we could see some hurricane force wind gusts. Not sustained winds, but gusts as we head throughout the middle of the day tomorrow. Some of those wind gusts through Jacksonville Beach, hurricane force wind gusts, would be anywhere from about 2 o'clock in the afternoon through the evening hours. So lasting through about that 10 o'clock, even to about midnight Thursday is when we could see some of those. And some of these models are in agreement of that. Here's St. Augustine, too. Sustained winds, tropical storm force through the middle of the day tomorrow. All these models are in agreement with that. We also want to show you the tropical storm force gusts for tomorrow. I think we'll even see some of those hurricane force gusts in St. Augustine again through the middle of the day, even lasting into the evening. So it may be dark while you're still experiencing some of those hurricane force gusts tomorrow. So this is just model data, but we agree that there will likely be at least a short period of time where we could see some of those hurricane force gusts, not sustained winds, Mike.
Yeah, and that is important for the bridges. Of course, sustained winds at 40 miles per hour would shut down the bridges, and that appears a distinct possibility. Intercoastal and beaches in particular, and a lot of water also from the sea and from the sky. Flood watch is in effect. I'll show you how much rain to expect in the first alert forecast in a few minutes.
And for days now, we've been telling you which counties have issued mandatory evacuation orders and then helping you to find your zone. Well, the time for that has now passed. It is now time to shelter in place until the storm passes. The exception is in southeast Georgia. There is still some time for you to get out safely. All areas east of I-95 are under a mandatory evacuation right now.
A curfew is now in effect for parts of St. Johns County. That covers the city of St. Augustine, the city of St. Augustine Beach, Flagler Estates, and Hastings. The curfew is from 8 tonight to 6 tomorrow morning. In Duval County, curfew's also in effect until 6 tomorrow morning. That covers the coastal cities of Jacksonville Beach, Neptune Beach, and Atlantic Beach. And in Nassau County, its curfew will run until 7 a.m. St. Augustine suffered some of the worst flooding of our entire area from Hurricane Matthew. People there are hoping we will not see a repeat of that. Action News Jax, Danny Bozzini is live in St. Augustine Beach. Danny.
Yeah, we're here at the Conch House in St. Augustine, and the wind has definitely started to pick up a bit, but I want to take a look and use my flashlight out here just to show you the water's not too bad just yet. The boats are rocking a little bit, but nothing too extreme. But I did just run into two women who were walking out here on a nightly stroll, and I said, "What are you doing out here?" And they said, "You know what? We were cooped up all day in their house, and we just needed one last stroll out here before they're cooped up again all day tomorrow." They're not evacuating, but they said they did prepare. They boarded up their doors and their windows, but they said about 60% of their neighbors did evacuate this time, and that's because a lot of them did see a lot of flooding from Matthew, and they just didn't want to risk it again. And this area, like I mentioned, is under a mandatory evacuation, but now is the time to be inside, be indoors, and so we'll be here all night long giving you updates live in St. Augustine. Danny Bozzini, CBS47 Fox 30 Action News Jax.
All right, Danny, we're also watching the conditions in Jacksonville Beach. This is getting windier and windier out there, too. Action News Jax, Ryan Nelson is live there. Ryan.
And right now, we're joining you live from Jacksonville Beach. I can tell you we've been here for about an hour or so, and we're already starting to see the early impacts of those strong winds. If I just step out of the frame here, right there, you can see the Jacksonville Beach pier. Certainly something that's top of mind for many in Duval County. We're certainly going to continue to monitor the possible impacts on the pier. But if we pan over here to the left, you can see all of this sea foam that is starting to wash up on the beach. And of course, those high waves, high surf. Another thing that we're going to continue to monitor closely for you, we're going to continue to monitor these impacts. Actually, not too long ago, we saw someone who was out here on the beach. We did speak to them, and they'll tell us in their own words why they were out here so close to the imposed curfew. Reporting in Jacksonville Beach, Ryan Nelson, Fox 30. Action News Jax.
That tide's on its way in. High tide expected about midnight up and down the coast. It's looking likely that we will see some flooding along the St. Augustine Bayfront. Action News Jax Russell Colburn is in the First Alert Storm Tracker. Of course, he was there 3 years ago when Matthew had much of the city of St. Augustine underwater.
Guys, we're in the First Alert Storm Tracker driving along the city of St. Augustine. We can give you a look outside. You can see the flashing lights up there. We have a police presence. We've seen them all around near the Bridge of Lions, making the determination when to close that bridge. But look at this. That's the bread and breakfast we covered a few years ago where the water was rushing in. Now they are all boarded up, all the businesses along here taking heed of what we saw during Hurricane Matthew. And we can bring up that video when that water was just rushing over the seawall. That seawall just no match for the waves that were created in the bay. So people here have used that as a lesson, and they're hoping they don't see a repeat of that. If we come back out here, more businesses boarded up, sandbags at the base of the ground there, just taking every precaution they can ahead of this storm. I can tell you we have started to see effects in this area of Dorian. The First Alert Weather Team saying the gusts are upwards of 30 miles per hour or higher, and the water in the bay has also gotten pretty choppy. This area, of course, under a mandatory evacuation, so it's definitely time for people to go to their safe place and hunker down. In St. Augustine, Russell Colburn, CBS 47, Fox 30, Action News Jax.
Russell, that area is also headed toward high tide, so we should see some flooding, if for no other reason because of high tides, but also some heavier rain that'll be moving in, and the surge ahead of Dorian is likely to be far in advance of the eye, so keep that in mind. The eye right now due east of Melbourne, working its way northwestbound, the heaviest and most intense part of the northwest quadrant of that hurricane headed our way. I'll time it out for you in the First Alert forecast.
Watching local bridges that could be closed. We'll have the latest report on which crossings could be blocked off tonight.
This is Action News Jax special coverage tracking Dorian.
Surfers taking big risks with their lives to try to catch some big waves. Look at that. A viewer sent us some drone video of dozens of surfers in the water today near the pier.
Well, some of our local bridges could close. Of course, they will close if winds hit sustained 40 miles an hour, sustained being the key.
Yes, the intracoastal bridges could be the first to close. And Action News Jax Megan Moriarty is live in Jacksonville Beach beneath the Beach Boulevard Bridge.
Yeah, we're here on Beach Boulevard near the Intracoastal Bridge, and right now it's been a pretty quiet night. As you can see, the bridge is still open, and there are plenty of cars here. I'm going to step out of the way. There are plenty of cars who are coming over the bridge right now onto the west side, heading away from Jacksonville Beach, and that could have to do with the fact that beach curfews are now in effect, and they're going to be in effect until 6 a.m. So remember, we're supposed to be staying off those beaches. Now, this bridge here is only supposed to close, like you said, if winds are at 40 miles per hour sustained for 1 minute or more. Earlier when we were out here around 9:30 p.m., I used this fancy anemometer here to test out what the mile per hour for winds were, and it was about 10 miles per hour. We can take a look right now. As you can see, that went down a lot. We're about 4 mile per hour winds. It's a pretty quiet, calm night right here. So we'll bring you the latest as soon as we have it. Right now, we are live near the Intracoastal Bridge. Megan Moriarty, Action News Jax.
Now certified Jacksonville's most accurate weather forecast. Action News Jax First Alert Weather.
And we continue to wait for the new numbers and track forecast from the National Hurricane Center, although I don't expect to see significant changes either way right now. The eye of the hurricane sitting southeast of Daytona Beach, just about due east of Cape Canaveral, moving to the northwest in general. You see little bursts of thunderstorms around it as it'll be just about steady state now for the next day to day and a half, not too far from the Gulf Stream, so it has some warm water to feed off of, but it's also drawing in some drier air every once in a while from land as it's close proximity to Florida, and it's moving slowly, so it's causing some cooling of the water underneath it, upwelling, and so all that adds up to what is likely to be a steady state for the most part from an intensity standpoint. And then we go to the track, which is curving a little bit to the northwest east of Daytona Beach as we get into the day tomorrow, and it starts to move faster. So the 6 miles per hour will be more on the order of 10 to 12 miles per hour through tomorrow morning east of St. Augustine, 2 o'clock in the afternoon tomorrow. And as it reaches each latitude here, whether it's in our viewing area, St. Augustine, Ponte Vedra, Jacksonville, and Jax Beach, and Neptune Beach to Amelia Island, and St. Mary's to Brunswick and Jekyll Island and St. Simon's Island. Once it gets to each point, that will cut off a lot of the rainfall. The winds will still be strong, but it'll cut off a lot of the rainfall. The rain will primarily be north and northwest of the center and then on out to sea. And that drier air, what happens with hurricanes like this, that drier over land eventually eats away the southern and southwestern portion of the hurricane when we're talking about the rainfall. So there'll be a pretty abrupt end to the rain later tomorrow and tomorrow evening as the center, the eye, goes on by and then scrapes the South and North Carolina coast thereafter for Thursday and Thursday night. Here's the eye on a First Alert Doppler, 5-sweep First Alert Doppler HD. Well-defined, well-organized, a large quadrant of heavy rain, wind, and storms in the northwestern quadrant. A narrow band, though, of intense band of showers and thunderstorms here. Some of this will try to get up into Jacksonville and nearby areas over the next few hours. Southeast Georgia are likely to stay largely dry for much of the rest of the night, but we can see some of these showers developing well out in advance of Dorian, when while it's dry now in the metro. Here are those heavier storms, St. Augustine working their way southwest across Interstate 95, then a break and another band of heavy rain and storms, and then you get into the solid shield of rain, wind, and storms when you get a little bit closer to the eye. Plenty of rain. It's not just storm surge, but also rain from the sky, Stacy.
And really, this is the rain that we're expecting through Thursday morning. Generally inland, about 1 to 3+ inches. Of course, at the coast, this will be higher, really from I-95 to the beaches, about 2 to 5+ inches there. This is why we have a flash flood watch in effect, really up and down the coastline. All the counties in green. That's through Thursday morning. This is where we could really see anywhere from 3 to 6+ inches of rain. And here's a model that actually highlights this pretty well. The red you're seeing here illustrating that some isolated areas, such as places like Brunswick or even Fernandina Beach, could see 6, 7+ inches of rain, but generally we're looking at about 2 to 4 or 5 inches of rain, Mike.
And that's on saturated soil, of course, so that's going to aggravate the flooding. Then you add in that storm surge and the beaches with very high waves over the next 24 hours. So winds really the story later tomorrow, during the day tomorrow, diminishing as we get into the middle of the night tomorrow night. Flooding, the peak of the flooding will be during the middle of the day tomorrow and into the afternoon. A combination of the rain and the storm surge, at least at the coast, also along the St. Johns River and its tributaries. That surge coming up a little earlier than you'd expect with where the eye is right now because of the size and the intensity that we had of Dorian a little earlier this week and over the weekend. And that surge will continue to be a concern right through the high tide cycles, in particular tomorrow evening and overnight. And there's at least an isolated threat for tornadoes overnight tonight into tomorrow morning. Once those bands start to come ashore, any of those could quickly produce a tornado that would result in a small area of even much more considerable damage. So 8 o'clock in the morning tomorrow, winds at the beaches very near that 40-mile-per-hour threshold. Look at the difference here. If you live inland, Stark, McClenny, Lake City, then north to Folkestone and Waycross, the winds will be far less, while the beaches are just getting hammered by these persistent and consistent 40 to 50-mile-per-hour winds as we go through the afternoon. The eye is starting to move away, but the winds are still howling at the beaches. The I-95 corridor is about 25 to 35 miles per hour, then less than 20 miles per hour the more inland you go. We'll take a look at your county-by-county first alert forecast and how it stacks up with Dorian's movement, and coming up in just a little bit.
And coming up, taking advantage of your generosity, how scammers are already using Dorian to try to steal your money and identity.
Live, this is Action News Jax special coverage tracking Dorian.
And the houseboats at Doctors Lake are beginning to rock on the water there. And this is part of Clay County that's in the evacuation zone. But people who decided to stay, they tell us they're hoping for the best.
Be no sleep tonight. I'll be up watching the boat and rocking with it now. And on the outside edge, we're already getting 3-foot, swells. The boats are just dancing out there.
This area and also Black Creek did suffer some pretty bad damage during Hurricane Irma. Well, already con artists are watching Hurricane Dorian, hoping it's an opportunity.
They want to steal your money and your identity. Art Taylor with the Better Business Bureau says that they will create phony websites and send you links via email so they can fish your information. Taylor says it's important for people to do their research before giving and to give money to reputable organizations. One of the things most donors fail to investigate, how and when contributions are used, which can take time.
And coming up, stories of survival and some stories of heartbreak, what we are learning about the devastation in the Bahamas.
Live, this is Action News Jax special coverage tracking Dorian.
I think we're fortunate that this will have minimal impact on Florida. It's still not over yet, so be prepared for any scenario.
That's right, a warning from FEMA's acting administrator to stay prepared. This changing track has been kinder to Florida, but it can always change, and there will still be impacts. Right now, Hurricane Dorian, moving at 6 miles an hour on its way up Florida's east coast, could still grow stronger as it approaches our latitude. Now, these are pictures of destruction from Marsh Harbor. That's Abaco Island in the Bahamas. These were shared to the Facebook group Living on Island Time. Unbelievable stuff. And this is a NOAA satellite shot showing 3 named storms: Hurricane Juliet in the Pacific, Tropical Storm Fernandina in the Gulf, and Dorian off our coast. Clearly, we're focused on Dorian for obvious reasons. Now, this is special coverage of Hurricane Dorian on CBS47 and FOX30 Action News Jax at 10. I'm John Bachman.
And I'm Tanika Hughes. Let's get you caught up on the very latest. The latest track of Dorian shows it is projected to get as close as 85 miles away from Jacksonville as a Category 2 hurricane, and that will take place tomorrow afternoon. Action News Jax has live team coverage with our crew stretched out from Central Florida to Southeast Georgia, covering all angles of the storm. Let's begin in the First Alert Weather Center with Chief Meteorologist Mike Burrish.
And we will have those new numbers, remember, in an updated track forecast coming out within the next 15 to 20, maybe 25 minutes from the National Hurricane Center. Not anticipating a great deal of change, but there was a little bit of a shift west at 5 p.m. And while it was relatively subtle, that gets to be pretty important when it's off our coast, right? So we'll see that here shortly and get an update. Hurricane Hunter aircraft in this storm, in this hurricane, virtually nonstop. And sure enough, we've just have one exiting right now. In fact, it's not far from Jacksonville. See that? That's where it is right now. What the plane is doing is it goes in, checks out the eye of the hurricane, goes through it, around it, over it, and then headed back now to base. That was one that came out of Biloxi, so it's headed just by Jacksonville right now, and then we'll go back and another plane comes out. We also have P-3 Hunter hurricane aircraft and research aircraft going out of Tampa from time to time. So pretty much monitoring this constantly, and of course now it's within Doppler radar range too, so that helps out. But this is the latest reports from the Hurricane Hunter aircraft showing the pressure down slightly. It wouldn't take a whole, that's not much though, and we're still seeing winds estimated to be over 100 miles per hour, very near the eye of the hurricane. And those new numbers will be out soon then, and would expect it to be near 110 miles per hour with that movement to the northwest at about 6 miles per hour, slowly gaining forward momentum with time. It's movement, in other words, as we go through the night and especially during the day tomorrow. Due east of St. Augustine about 2 o'clock in the afternoon tomorrow, so in roughly about 15 hours, 16 hours, and due east of Jacksonville during the late afternoon, and then it accelerates to the northeast, kind of bouncing off, if you will, the Carolinas and on out into the western Atlantic. Tropical impacts on this storm for the coast are pretty significant. We've given it an 8 on the impact scale. Winds of 40 to 50 miles per hour, but gusts should easily crack 60 or even 70 miles per hour. Storm surge is pretty important. It will be greater than what we would typically expect for a Category 2, more than 50 miles away from our coast, and that's because Dorian was such a monster just a couple of days ago. It was an intense Category 5 hurricane, slow moving. It's got a lot of water that it's moving now, and some of that will make it all the way to our coastline in northeast Florida and southeast Georgia. Rainfall 3 to 5 inches or more. There may be some spots that are not too far from 7 and 8 inches for a while, but the west and southwest side of that hurricane is going, the rain is going to get dried up, if you will, because of the dry air that's circulating off of Florida with time. It isn't yet, but that'll happen with time. And wave heights 15 to 20 feet, and there may even be a few breakers at our beaches greater than 20 feet. Inland, it's not near as intense, but this is well inland. When you get near and west of Highway 301, it's about a 3 on the impact scale. Along the I-95 corridor, it'd be more on the order of a 6, and maybe even along the St. Johns River a 7. Then we get to that 8 at the coast, where winds will be 15 to 30 miles per hour well inland with higher gusts. Rainfall range from 1 to 4 inches. River surge significant, 2 to 4 feet, including the tributaries. And there is an isolated tornado threat and waterspout threat throughout the night tonight and into the day tomorrow as those spiral bands work their way around the eye of the hurricane. So we'll break down the hour-by-hour first alert forecast expectations with Dorian, and hopefully within pretty soon here we should have the new numbers and track update from the National Hurricane Center.
All right, Mike, the wind starting to pick up a bit in Fernandina Beach right now. Action News Jax Jamarlo Phillips is live in Nassau County, seeing what's been done to protect homes and businesses there. Jamarlo.
And John, this is what it looks like here on Fernandina Beach. If you take a look to my right here, you can see that every beach access point looks just like this right here. Crews stack this sand here to keep water from flowing in. And if we look just beyond the sand here, you can see Sliders, Seaside Grill. They're closed tonight, just like many other businesses here along Fernandina Beach. And if you look next to this business here, you can see a palm tree blowing in the wind. That kind of shows you just how quickly the wind is picking up out here. Now I'm going to let my photographer kind of walk with me over here and just show you guys what it looks like out here in the Atlantic right now. Not sure if you can see, but we're going to just walk a little bit closer just to give you guys a better look at what's going on here. You can see a lot of wave action. We've seen the waves strengthen over the last 30 minutes since we've been out here, and this is why county officials put in a curfew tonight. They started that curfew at 8 o'clock tonight, and it could be lifted tomorrow depending on what impacts Dorian brings here to Nassau County and Fernandina Beach. Now, we're going to stay out here and monitor conditions and bring you the latest as far as what we see as Dorian makes its way closer to here. Reporting live here in Nassau County, I'm Jamarlo Phillips, CBS47 FOX30 Action News Jax.
All right, this video was sent to us by Nassau County Emergency Management. Shows Dorian evacuees, a few of them there at shelter at Callahan Middle School. You can find a full list of shelters from all local counties on actionnewsjax.com. You can see they still have plenty of room if you're thinking about moving to a shelter tonight in Nassau County.
Well, tonight we are hearing some of the stories of heartbreak from the Bahamas. We've been showing you the video throughout the day, and now we are hearing from a man, a crab fisherman, who lost his wife during the storm.
And all the appliances were going around the house like a washing machine. That's probably I got hit with something in there. And my poor little wife got hypothermia, and she was standing on top of the kitchen cabinets until they disintegrated. And then I kept with her, and she just drowned on me. I'm so sorry. I know.
It's just heartbreaking, just unimaginable. And that's just the beginning of the stories that we will hear out of the Bahamas, stories of heartbreak, stories of survival. And in Florida, a 55-year-old man died Monday evening after falling from a tree he was trying to cut ahead of Hurricane Dorian's arrival. Firefighters say the man had climbed about 15 feet into that tree with a chainsaw, and right as he was attempting to position himself to cut branches, he fell, and he was not using a ladder.
At some point, we believe, while the storm's off the coast of Georgia, we're going to have a couple of high tides the same time the storm's moving through, which is going to give us significant water flooding issues.
Our Georgia coastal counties of Glenn and Camden are bracing for storm surge tonight, and those local counties will likely feel the worst hurricane effects from Dorian than any other part of Georgia. Action News Jax Amber Kriska was in Glenn County taking stock of the impacts there.
Take a look. The Sydney Linear Bridge is officially closed. They closed it at 8 tonight. The Jekyll Island Causeway is also closed. Now, we were on the other side of the bridge for the day. We spent the entire day on St. Simon's Island. This is what the beach looked like around 12:30 during high tide. You can see some decent-sized waves and how high the water got. It was all the way to the rocks and the boardwalk we were standing on. People who live in the area say they are concerned about storm surge mixed with high tide. Now, we talked to a guy who lives in the area. He says he had a lot of damage from Hurricane Irma, about 2 feet of water in his home. He was still staying, but preparing.
I've got a 12:30 date with an ice machine. I'm getting ice in all these coolers. I'm trying to keep the water out of the house.
There's also a curfew for everyone on St. Simon's Island and the entire city of Brunswick. Everyone east of 95. That curfew will be until 6 tomorrow morning. Reporting in Glenn County, Amber Kriska, CBS47 FOX30 Action News Jax.
Well, as the forecast changes, schools are adding on days to the closure list. Nearly all our local counties have announced closures, but it varies on when they will reopen. We'll take this day by day. All counties in Northeast Florida and Southeast Georgia will be closed on Wednesday, with the exception of Columbia County. Then on Thursday, all of our coastal counties and Putnam County in Florida and Georgia will remain closed. Union County, which was slated to be closed, made the decision to reverse that, so they will be open on Thursday. And will be open again. We're still waiting decisions from some of the other counties, and we will continue to update those closures on air. On the bottom of your screen, you can get a look at the information on actionnewsjax.com as well.
Neighbors in Fernandina Beach are very familiar with hurricane damage. Action News Jax Brittany Verner spoke with several about what they're going to do differently this time.
This Fernandina Beach neighborhood was under mandatory evacuation, but some people decided to stay, and they decided to weather the storm instead. They prepped their homes. You can see their sandbags right here to prevent water from getting inside. Tuesday, many people in Fernandina Beach decided to shelter in place. It's because county leaders set a curfew for 8 p.m. on Tuesday evening. Nassau County held a briefing earlier on Tuesday telling people although the storm hasn't arrived yet, they still need to brace themselves for the potential impact of Hurricane Dorian. Initially, they announced a mandatory evacuation for zones A, C, and F on Monday morning, and they are urging people to still take this storm seriously. That's why a curfew has been issued for 8 o'clock on Tuesday night and will resume until 7 a.m. on Wednesday.
When they mention the word hurricane, everybody get a little excited and just overreact a little bit, but we're going to be fine.
I spoke with many people throughout this Fernandina Beach neighborhood who said they decided to stay and they were going to shelter in place because they had enough food, and they've seen many hurricanes come and go. County leaders, however, are still urging people to shelter in place as of 8 p.m. on Tuesday. Reporting in Nassau County, Brittany Verner, CBS47, Fox 30, Action News Jax.
Hurricane Dorian moving northwestbound. New numbers imminent from the National Hurricane Center. A broad eye, kind of open here on the east side, as indicated by Hurricane Hunter aircraft. So it's just about steady state for the most part, but some of the rain bands are already making it ashore, and that includes St. Augustine right now. You can see the wind blowing. It's wet here. It was raining just a minute ago. It's warm, 81, but look at that north-northeast wind, sustained now at 31 miles per hour in St. Augustine, not too far from tropical storm force. First alert forecast in minutes.
Is that what happens when you bundle home and auto insurance? See what I did there? See how a local homeowner took action to protect his property.
This is Action News Jax special coverage tracking Dorian.
Well, the damage is intense in the Bahamas. Take a look at this aerial shot of a boatyard there after Hurricane Dorian, just scattered about. Some homeowners are taking a unique approach to protecting their homes and their property, particularly one in St. Johns County.
Yeah, yesterday we showed you the lady who wrapped her house in plastic.
Also in St. Johns County.
Now today, Action News Jax Russell Colburn saw one special solution to a home right along A1A in Ponte Beach.
Okay, yeah, so we just stepped out of the First Alert Storm Tracker a short time ago. The homeowner tells me this caddy right here, this SUV, this is his battle wagon, is what he calls it. And he's hoping the 6,000-pound SUV can help anchor these straps, which he's saying are going to create 50,000 pounds of downward force, all right? So I'm throwing a lot of science at you. But basically what he's hoping is that all of that force pushing down can prevent winds from ripping off his roof. He just acquired this property not too long ago and is hoping to preserve whatever he can. He and his family are actually staying to ride this storm out here. We just caught up with him.
You got to be pretty crazy to get up there and do it, and that's what I did. And we'll find out today from now. It may be all this wasted effort, and it may not. I don't know. But I had to try something.
And you can see those straps there fastened to the stairs and the stilts of the home, which have concrete blocks at the bottom. And looking through that, you can see just how close the ocean is to the back of this home, a few dozen yards or so, and that's it. I can tell you this has become quite a spectacle for people. They've been coming in, taking pictures, and posting about this, so they just hope that this works and they can ride out this storm safely. In Ponte Beach, Russell Colburn, CBS47 FOX30 Action News Jax.
I tell you what, we hope it works as well, and we will check back and see if in fact it did. All right, we're going to start with some pictures out of Jacksonville Beach, where we've seen quite a few thrill seekers like windsurfers in the water. Take a look. These are pictures of a kite surfer riding around in that choppy water. A lot of them out today. And from that particular angle right there, it almost looks like he's jumping over the Jacksonville Beach pier, but I believe this is just the angle at which the picture was taken. Still, pretty impressive stuff, and a lot of air there, no doubt about it. Amazing stuff. All right, now, we warn you all the time about the dangers of driving in floodwaters. Another example of why you shouldn't do this. This is in the Bahamas, and the truck gets, well, swept away there. It doesn't make it, and then it stalls out. An example of the good work being done in the Bahamas. Cooks at the Atlantis Resort are preparing thousands of meals for evacuees and rescuers, I presume. The resort is in Nassau, which is farther south than the worst hit area like the Grand Bahama and, of course, Abaco. But look at all those sandwiches they're making there. Great stuff being done, and just the beginning of what will be an immense relief effort in the Bahamas.
Now, certified Jacksonville's most accurate weather forecast. Action News Jax, first alert weather.
The broad circulation of Dorian moving to the northwest. The new numbers will be in from the National Hurricane Center anytime now, along with an updated track forecast. Not expecting a whole lot of change, and it has been, and if you watch this closely, it's been wobbling. It had a pretty decent west-northwest track for a while this afternoon. Now it's a little bit more north. That wobble will continue on and off, but the net movement is off to the northwest. Notice how all this orange and bright red, how it kind of starts to fade. That's the impacts of land, being so close to land, and that drier air coming in underneath. That's why we aren't going to see even more tremendous rainfall than we might otherwise. It'll be wet enough, but it also means an abrupt cutoff to the rain, and will break out quickly with clearing skies by once that eye heads on by, which will, most places up and down the coast won't occur until very late tomorrow afternoon or tomorrow evening, but certainly then overnight as it moves northwest and then turns a little bit more northward. Another burst of thunderstorms there coming around on the east side starting to develop. Look at those storms fire, and those will try to wrap around the eye overnight tonight and into early tomorrow morning, and some of those will make it into Jacksonville and northeastern Florida. Those are the ones that will have the potential to produce isolated waterspouts and tornadoes, and then continue northwestbound up toward, or north and northeastbound up toward Georgia as well. So making a turn a little bit to the east of Cape Canaveral over the next few hours. At about 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, east of St. Augustine by about 75 miles or so. So by about 4 to 4:30 in the afternoon, about 80 miles east of Jacksonville Beach, and then by about 7 to 8 p.m., maybe as late as 9 p.m., 70 to 80 miles to the southeast of St. Simon's Island, Jekyll Island, and Brunswick area before it moves on toward the Carolinas, and then we get into that drier air. New stats track should be out just about any minute now, along with any updates on warnings that might be issued or additional advisories. Really a compromise track, if you will, between what we had 3 years ago with Matthew, and then 20 years ago this year, Floyd, which was a very intense, large hurricane, well offshore. Matthew closer, and then kind of somewhere in between here would be Dorian. And so the impacts are going to be something closer to what we had with Matthew, which was the beach beating. It's east of Jax Beach, ranging anywhere from Cat 2 to 3, and very rough seas and surf and high breakers at our beaches. Was a Category 5. That's one of the differences. Dorian was, as it was a little bit closer, and so that means even higher breakers at our beaches and an earlier, this is important, earlier arrival of the potential storm surge flooding, which is now probably a little more than hours away for St. Augustine, as the eye is now about a little more than maybe between 100 and 200 miles from Jacksonville. We'll look at that here in a minute. It is dry in the metro area now. There are heavy showers working their way through parts of St. Augustine and southern St. Johns County into St. Augustine Beach at 11:15, this heavy shower. But for the rest of the area, it's going to be a while before those heaviest bands get in here, because there's that eye now, and right at the moment, there it is, 211 miles away. To the center of the eye, the outer part of that a little bit closer. It'll take a while before those heavier rain bands and storms make it in here. But the higher winds, the arrival times, 8 o'clock tomorrow morning downtown Jacksonville, 5 in the morning for Jax Beach, 2 in the morning for Ponte Vedra, so just a few hours away. Likewise for St. Augustine and Fernandina Beach about 6 in the morning, and Brunswick by 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. And most spots will have 10 to 12 hours or so of the strongest winds. Breaking it down in the area region by region, go to Stacy.
All right, thanks, Mike. We'll start out with I-95 to Highway 301. So obviously impacts not as great as right along the coast, but still looking at the potential for wind speeds between 20 to 30 miles per hour. Also river surge about 2 to 4 feet there. Rainfall anywhere from 1 to 4 plus inches, and can't rule out an isolated tornado either. Now, inland Florida, we're looking at 15 to 20 plus mile per hour winds with a rainfall of around 1 inch. That's for Lake City, Lake Butler, Sanderson, and Taylor. Also, Georgia inland communities, Blackshear, Waycross, Folkston, with anywhere from 15 to 20 plus mile per hour wind gusts with rainfall amounts ranging around 1 to possibly up to 2 inches there. Our coastal communities, so from Brunswick, Jekyll Island, St. Mary's, Fernandina Beach, all the way through Ponte Vedra, St. Augustine. This is where we'll see those tropical storm force winds and possibly even some hurricane force wind gusts. Not necessarily hurricane force winds, but some occasional off and on gusts. Waves anywhere from 15 to 20 feet. So big waves out there. That means storm surge along the coast anywhere from 4 to 7 plus feet. Rainfall 3 to 5 plus inches, Mike.
Stacey, it's heavy rain, it's wind, and it's all arriving over the next few hours. The peak of the impacts from Dorian. More at actionnewsjax.com, and download for free the First Alert Weather app.
This is Action News Jax special coverage tracking Dorian.
And we're seeing more video of that destruction there in the Bahamas. Crews flying over the area, the U.S. Coast Guard supplying those planes, and it's just a mess there. And we're also watching the conditions in Jacksonville Beach. It's getting windier out there as well. Action News Jax Ryan Nelson is live there now.
And Tanika, my photographer, and I have been here for about the last couple of hours, and the conditions have seemingly gotten worse by the second. I can show you this. Look at all this sea foam the ocean is pushing up on the coast here, and you can just see it coming in wave after wave, and look at all that rough surf. And if we just pan over to the right a little bit, right there is that Jacksonville Beach pier, something that we're going to continue to monitor closely. The First Alert Weather Team tells us that we are expecting to see high tide tonight. Now, believe it or not, we've seen people walking around in these conditions, what they had to say and more. All new at 11. Reporting at Jacksonville Beach, Ryan Nelson, Fox 30, Action News Jax.
All right, let's go to St. Augustine Beach right now. That's where Action News Jax Danny Bozzini is. Danny.
Yeah, we're at St. Johns County Pier, where we're continuing to monitor the changing conditions here. The wind is still picking up and getting pretty strong. I'm getting tossed around just a little bit, but nothing too crazy yet. But I want to quickly really show you just how dead it is out here. It actually looks like people are following this curfew, which is good to see. But we'll continue to monitor this area all night long. Live in St. Augustine Beach, Danny Bozzini, CBS47, Fox 30, Action News Jax.
And we do have that latest advisory in on Hurricane Dorian. Chief Meteorologist Mike Burrish and Stacey Garvilla joining us right now. They're going to actually walk up as we expand the shot. And not a lot of changes in this.
Not a lot of changes, just a very slight nudge to the east. This is inconsequential on the
About
impact.
5 miles, right?
Yeah,
it was.
yeah, exactly.
So
So 90
really.
miles offshore, still is a Category 2, still late tomorrow afternoon. All systems go, no significant changes. This is a beating of our beaches, and we'll break this down for you here in just a few minutes on the timing and the distance from the rest of the coast.
And a reminder, we're on at 11. We're also going to be coming on at 4 a.m. tomorrow morning, so stay with us right now.
This is Action News Jax special coverage tracking Dorian.
And right now, the Florida coast is feeling the impacts of Hurricane Dorian. On your left, a live picture from Cocoa Beach in Central Florida, where you can see the rough surf out there. On the right, our sky cam. This is right over downtown St. Augustine. You can see some flashing lights from police cruisers. They are stationed near the Bridge of Lions. A lot of them on standby, watching these winds. Now, by the time you wake up in the morning, part of our area will be feeling those tropical storm wind gusts. I'm Tanika Hughes.
I'm John Bachman. The 11 o'clock update on Dorian's strength and speed just came in. We have live team coverage up and down the coast monitoring conditions. We begin with Action News Jax Chief Meteorologist Mike Burrish in the First Alert Weather Center. Mike, not a lot of change in that 11 o'clock advisory.
No, pretty much as expected now this evening. What changes we have is that the storm is moving more northerly to some degree. The text product said 8 miles per hour, says 6 miles per hour here on the banner. Obviously, though, starting to pick up at least a little bit of speed. Winds at 110 miles per hour. Category 2 hurricane. But remember, because it was a Cat 5 a couple of days ago, don't get lulled into a false sense of security and say, hey, it's just a Category 2. No such thing. They can be very dangerous. And this one, powerful one, because of how intense it was just a couple of days ago. It will mean higher than average seas in surf and storm surge, reaching our beaches and coastal areas a little faster than you might otherwise expect with a hurricane like this. It's got a broad wind field that continues to expand now, and the updated track takes the hurricane offshore to the east of Daytona Beach and then St. Augustine. Let's go ahead and take this full. It will continue then northbound, turning a little more north offshore of Jacksonville. Don't get too caught up in that cone either, because remember, the skinnier the cone, that just means that's the more confidence in where it's going. It has nothing to do with the width of the storm, where the most damage is going to be, and how powerful it might be. So just keep in mind what the skinny cone means is we're really confident about where it's going to go. And then by Thursday evening, it's off the coast of the Carolinas and starting to accelerate out over the western Atlantic. So what has changed with this particular update? A ever so slight shift to the east on the center, but by 5 to 10 miles, inconsequential. Category 2 hurricane, 90 miles east of Jacksonville late tomorrow afternoon, and that movement starting to turn a little bit more north-northwest now at about 6 to 8 miles per hour. There's the eye, a broad eye now. This is why it reminds me very much of Francis and Jean in 2004 as they got closer to Florida, starting to open up a wide eye. When they get that wide, they're not going to intensify real fast, so we shouldn't see that kind of scenario. More than likely steady state. Dry in the metro now and much of southeast Georgia, but heavy bands of rain are approaching from the south and east. It'll take a little while for these to get in here, but the winds are already strong, and these showers as they move into St. Augustine Beach will produce brief gusty winds in addition to the large area of heavy rain and storms that's just outside the eye that will be moving up the coast through Jacksonville, northeast Florida, and then into southeast Georgia. I'll time the rain and the wind in the full First Alert forecast is a few minutes away.
And right now, as Dorian moves closer to Jacksonville, the weather is picking up at Jacksonville Beach. That's where our Ryan Nelson is now, where there are some folks out despite the curfew and the warning to stay off our beaches.
And Tanika, my photographer, and I have been here for about the last couple of hours or so. And since we've been here, I've been monitoring the wind conditions with this wind gauge. Now, it looks like we've seen a maximum wind gust of about 36.4 miles per hour. We're certainly feeling every bit of that right now. Now we can show you some of these conditions that we're seeing as well. Look at all this sea foam that we're seeing wash up right onto the beach. If we go ahead and look out to the ocean, you can see that rough surf just crashing right into the beach. And of course, something that we're going to continue to monitor closely, the Jacksonville Beach Pier. I know this is a topic of concern for many of you watching at home tonight, just given some of the issues that it's had before in the past. Certainly something that we're going to keep our eye on. And these are the conditions that we saw people walking around in earlier tonight. Here's what they had to say when we asked them why. What are you doing out here?
Yeah, we just come out here to check it out, to see the weather, see what it was looking like. You know, this stuff just makes me curious. I love Mother Nature.
And as long as it's safe for me and my photographer to be out here, we are going to stay and try and report and bring you the latest information that we can. We will also be live tonight, tomorrow morning at 4 a.m. So be sure to join us there. Reporting in Jacksonville Beach, Ryan Nelson, CBS47 FOX30 Action News Jax.
Well, many of us remember this. This is what St. Augustine is preparing for. Major flooding that happened 3 years ago during Hurricane Matthew. It was neighbors were worried that it will happen again. Action News Jax Danny Bozzini is live in St. Augustine Beach tonight, where barriers have been put in place to keep people out of the water as a curfew is now in effect.
Yeah, we're here at St. Johns County Pier, and you can see right here, these parking lot closed, barricades up, not allowing anyone inside this parking lot to get to the pier. They just don't want anyone out here, and it seems to be working. I'm going to have my photographer just pan over here to the roadway. I mean, check it, look at this. There are no cars out here on the road, and the only ones that we have seen out here have been patrol cars, probably patrolling to make sure everyone's following that 8 p.m. curfew that went into effect tonight. The wind has definitely picked up, and it's drizzling a little bit out right now, but nothing too crazy just yet. But we'll continue to monitor the changing conditions here all night long. Live in St. Augustine Beach, Danny Bozzini, CBS47, Fox 30 Action News Jax.
All right, Danny, and Action News Jax, our teams all across the state covering Dorian, and everyone is just starting to get a little taste of this thing. Our team coverage continues now with Action News Jax' Jamarlo Phillips. He is in Fernandina Beach where the wind is picking up.
That's right, I'm here out on Fernandina Beach, and if you take a look behind me here, this is what's going on in the Atlanta right now. Wow, take a look here. You can see the water is coming up close to my feet now. We've been out here for the past 45 minutes or so, and we have definitely seen strengthening here as far as the waves. Now, there is a curfew tonight here in Nassau County. That curfew was set at 8 o'clock tonight, and city county leaders could the curfew by tomorrow morning. Take a look out here on the beach. You can see that no one is out here on the beach tonight. And if you take a look over here to my left, you can see that every beach access point looks like this right here. Sand is filled here to keep water from flowing in, possibly to prevent businesses here along the beach from flooding. Now the wind out here is picking up by the minute. We're going to stay out here. We're going to monitor conditions, and according to our first alert chief meteorologist Mike Burrish, we're expecting high tide in the next couple of hours. Reporting live here in Nassau County, I'm Jamarlo Phillips, CBS 47, Fox 30 Action News Jax.
Our crews again are going to stay out there and keep monitoring these changing conditions. We have some flooding expected closer here near Doctors Lake.
Yeah, our Action News Jax team coverage continues with Action News Jax Elizabeth Pace, who saw some boats beginning to rock in the water there.
We're here along Doctors Lake, and already the current is starting to pick up from St. Johns River. Behind me, you can see some of these houseboats rocking in the water, really showing the movement over here in Clay County. Zones A and B were asked to evacuate first. The county has flooding concerns for low-lying properties near St. Johns River, Doctors Lake, and Black Creek. Each had devastating flood damage from Hurricane Irma. Now for Dorian, the EOC says wind could have a damaging impact. One man thought he would be safer from the debris in his houseboat tied up at Doctors Lake.
There'll be no sleep tonight. I'll be up watching the boat and rocking with it now, and on the outside edge we're already getting 3-foot swells. The boats are just dancing out there.
If you are planning on leaving your home, there's 5 different shelters around Clay County that you can choose from. Some are pet friendly and some accommodate special needs. And because those shelters are in schools, the Clay County School District did tell me that classes are canceled Wednesday and Thursday. Reporting in Clay County, Elizabeth Pace, CBS 47 Fox 30 Action News Jax.
Tracking Dorian, I'm Action News Jax Chief Meteorologist Mike Burrish. We have the new track forecast, the updated track forecast. I'll show you how far it is as we move up the coast, and Dorian is making that move northward over the next about day to day and a half, and then those local impacts. It's in your first alert forecast in minutes.
And a live look again at Cocoa Beach. In a couple of minutes, we'll show you what's happening at a marina in Jacksonville Beach.
This is Action News Jax special coverage tracking Dorian.
All right, this is the 11 o'clock advisory. We just got into the Action News Jax newsroom about 15 minutes ago, and take a look at this. Dorian has started turning north, has it about 90 miles east of Jacksonville when it gets up to our level there. First Alert Weather Center has Dorian headed. We'll tell you where it has Dorian headed in about 2 minutes. As Dorian nears, a curfew is in place for beach communities in Duval County. Action News Jax Megan Moriarty is live at a marina in Jacksonville Beach where boaters are still securing their boats despite the curfew.
Yeah, we're right here off of Beach Boulevard near the Intracoastal Bridge, and we actually switched sides since last time. We're over on the east side, on the Jacksonville Beach side, and this marina right here is closed. You can check out the sign up there for Beach Marina. It says, "Stay safe, Jacksonville. We're closed until Dorian passes." However, we did catch up with one boater. He's out here securing his sailboat. He typically sleeps on it, but he says he's securing it and heading inland for the night, and he suggests other people do the same. Do you think it's safe to stay out on that boat?
Tonight, no.
And since we've been out here, the winds definitely feel like they're picking up. The palm trees are moving back and forth, and I can feel the wind on my face. Let's quickly just check out right here, see if they picked up since last time. Remember earlier, it said it was about 5 miles per hour. It's about 12 now. So for right now, we are live near the Intracoastal Bridge. Megan Moriarty, CBS47 Action News Jax.
Now certified Jacksonville's most accurate weather forecast. Action News Jax First Alert Weather.
We're continuing to track the storm as it moves its way to the west and to the northwest. As it continues to move west-northwest bound, we're looking at the storm continuing to move up the coast, and we're going to see this storm moving slowly west and northwest bound now. You can see by 5 o'clock tomorrow morning, we're starting to get tropical storm force winds into central portions of Duval County as the hurricane makes the move to the northwest and then turning northward with time, and that northward move is really the key here, as the eye is a little bit broad, but certainly very identifiable, isn't it? It looks like a donut, at least is not near as violent as it was just a couple of days ago, of course, as a Category 5 hurricane moving off to the northwest now at about 6 to 8 miles per hour or so, winds at about 110 miles per hour, and we continue to track the updated forecast track now, which is east and southeast of Daytona Beach, and that's going to continue to move northwest bound. So let's take it full so we can get a nice good look at this for our viewers as we continue to see the hurricane move generally northbound and then turn north with time. It'll be east of Daytona Beach at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, and then as it continues northbound, it's at 8 in the evening. It's at about the latitude of the Florida-Georgia border, and then just offshore of the Carolinas, or very near Myrtle Beach and Cape Hatteras, the outer banks of North Carolina, as we get into Thursday and Thursday night. So specifically for northeast Florida and southeast Georgia, the eye 80 miles from St. Simon's Island, 85 miles from Jekyll Island and Fernandina Beach, about 90 miles at its closest approach. Tomorrow afternoon from Jax Beach, and from St. Augustine about 85 miles. So those are the times on here. About 2 o'clock in the afternoon is when it's sitting east of St. Augustine. By 2 o'clock in the morning, it's pushed to the east of Brunswick. So we'll watch that area of wind as it affects areas of northeastern Florida. And you can see here, the point is on this is the cone of concern, right? It's become more narrow. It's become more skinny. Don't mistake that for meaning that the damage is now only in this little area. All this is the average forecast error. The winds and the potential damage are far greater outside of that cone. All this is where the storm's headed. It's the statistical forecast error on average, but the potential damage is back here, or strong winds at least, all the way to I-95, and certainly our beaches will have the high winds and the very heavy rain as well, and rough seas and surf. 5-Speed First Alert Doppler HD, really pretty quiet for Jacksonville and much of northeastern Florida and southeast Georgia for right now, but heavy bands of rain and storms are not far away, so we'll still be dry for another couple of hours. A heavy shower here in St. Augustine, but the real intense bands are still going to be a while before they move in here, as this shower drops right down into St. Augustine Beach. A large shield of heavy rain and storms in the northwestern quadrant right now of Dorian, and there's that broad eye, some 200, little over 200 miles to the southeast of Jacksonville, with a steady movement now to the north and northwest. So the strongest winds for most areas will be during the day tomorrow. Of course, some spots will start as early as later tonight, especially St. Johns County and nearby spots, and a little bit later for southeastern Georgia, and then it ends a little bit later, too, from south to north. Some of the greatest impacts in the red shading. The winds will be late tonight and through the day tomorrow. The flooding concerns tomorrow, both storm surge and freshwater flooding from rain. Storm surge is going to be pretty widespread along our coast, but also the St. Johns River and its tributaries later tonight and through the day tomorrow, and there is at least an isolated tornado threat occurring with any of those strong rain bands. So here's exactly when the strongest winds rather, will be moving in. Stacy, let's take a look at this entire list.
All right. Well, so we do expect some of those tropical storm force winds to make their way into downtown Jacksonville by about 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. That will continue through midnight on Thursday. So we are looking at about a good day of some of those gusty winds there. Jacksonville Beach getting there a little bit earlier. 5 o'clock tomorrow morning, you could start feeling some of those tropical storm force winds. In Ponte Vedra Beach, even earlier, 2 o'clock in the morning. It's the same for Ponte Vedra Beach and St. Augustine. Now in Fernandina Beach, about 6 o'clock tomorrow morning is when we'll start to feel those. And in Brunswick, obviously a little bit later. So let's take you through this wind forecast here. I'll move out of the way so you can see it. This is starting at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. We've got some of those strong winds out of the northeast and north. These are sustained winds too, anywhere from 35 to about 45 miles per hour. So getting those tropical storm force winds tomorrow morning. We already took you through the timing there. As we continue into the afternoon and evening, we'll start to see more of the northwesterly winds as Hurricane Dorian continues to track a little farther away from our coast. But some of these numbers showing 45 to 50 miles per hour sustained. That means higher gusts up over 60 miles per hour in some cases. I think we could briefly at the coast get a few hurricane force gusts. Not sustained winds, but gusts. And then as we head into early on Thursday, still very breezy, but the storm will be moving out of there. Mike, I'll let you go ahead and take a look here at southeast Georgia, too.
Where we're looking at the strongest winds a little bit later, Stacy, because again, moving from south to north. So at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning, about sunrise, the winds are just beginning to crank for Brunswick, St. Mary's, and St. Simon's Island. Look at the difference versus inland spots. Blackshear, Waycross, and folks that just like northeast Florida, you get inland enough, it's not much of a factor. The winds, much more so. Here's 5 to 6 o'clock and then 7 o'clock in the morning on Thursday as the hurricane's moving away. It's still 30 to 35, maybe some 40-mile-per-hour gusts at the coast in Georgia, and then it finally all moves on out as we go through the day on Thursday, and we'll see the areas along I-95 to the beaches with the hardest hit with as far as rainfall and isolated tornadoes goes, and the storm surge at the beaches as much as 4 to 6 feet, while inland along the St. Johns River and its tributaries more on the order of about several feet. But look what happens once Dorian's moving away. The sun comes out and it will be hot Thursday, Friday, right on into your weekend. We'll see temperatures soaring into the 90s. All the latest First Alert weather and updates on Dorian. Go to onlineactionnewsjax.com. Download for free the First Alert weather app and my tweets at Mike First Alert.
Well, 2 bridges in southeast Georgia are now closed ahead of Hurricane Dorian. Sidney Lanier in Glenn County and Talmadge Memorial in Chatham County. The Georgia Department of Transportation saying they anticipate tropical storm force winds coming from Dorian, so they just went ahead and closed them. Action News Jax reporter Amber Kriska visited Sidney Lanier Bridge tonight.
Take a look. The Sidney Linear Bridge is officially closed. They closed it at 8 tonight. The Jekyll Island Causeway is also closed. Now, we were on the other side of the bridge for the day. We spent the entire day on St. Simon's Island. This is what the beach looked like around 12:30 during high tide. You can see some decent-sized waves and how high the water got. It was all the way to the rocks and the boardwalk we were standing on. People who live in the area say they are concerned about storm surge mixed with high tide. Now, we talked to a guy who lives in the area. He says he had a lot of damage from Hurricane Irma, about 2 feet of water in his home. He was still staying, but preparing.
I've got a 12:30 date with an ice machine. I'm getting ice in all these coolers. I'm trying to keep the water out of the house.
There's also a curfew for everyone on St. Simon's Island and the entire city of Brunswick. Everyone east of 95. That curfew will be until 6 tomorrow morning. Reporting in Glenn County, Amber Kriska, CBS 47 Fox 30 Action News Jax.
All right, coming up in just a couple of minutes, Action News Jax First Alert Chief Meteorologist Mike Burris takes a look at what's steering Hurricane Dorian.
Live, this is Action News Jax special coverage tracking Dorian.
And we continue to track Dorian, of course, as it moves just a little bit northwest of the Bahamas, finally giving the Bahamas a break, but unfortunately hitting our coast hard. And part of that equation, part of that story hitting our coast, the tides. So these are your high tides. This is Mayport, so obviously it's a little bit different up and down the coast, certainly different in the intracoastal and our tributaries, but we're headed toward high tide in most spots now along the coast. 1 o'clock in the morning at Mayport, and then again at 1:40 in the afternoon. Ryan Nelson right now live at our beaches, and Ryan, that water's coming up. I can only imagine it looks a lot different now than, say, maybe a couple of hours ago.
And Mike, right now we're standing on the edge of those dunes. Certainly we were sure not to step on them. We know that's going to be something that we're all watching closely, is how they'll stand to the impacts or the possible impacts here of Hurricane Dorian. If we just pan back over to the left, you can see that rough surf, those waves just crashing in along the shoreline. And Mike, we will be seeing high tide here soon.
So Ryan, as we continue to track the storm, if we can take a shot of those dunes one more time, the live shot, we should be able to see those. And I'm not sure we still have it, but the dune, there we go, nicely done. The dunes are likely to, at least in places, there's a good chance they're going to be breached or compromised. I'm not quite as concerned about the high tide cycle coming up over the next hour to an hour and a half as much as I am tomorrow midday and into the afternoon, because the eye of Dorian at that point is going to be much closer. You know, these dunes were just restored in many cases within the last year or two, in some cases even less, after Matthew and Irma's beating from 2016 and then 2017 with Irma. So it's going to be another rough one for our beaches, unfortunately. We may be talking about breakers at our beaches as high as 20 feet tomorrow afternoon or higher in places. That's a pounding, and that will rival anything that we saw with Matthew in 2016 and Floyd 20 years ago in 1999. More news and weather, the latest on Dorian, coming up in just a few minutes.
And we will continue to track Dorian. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes.
This is Action News Jax special coverage tracking Dorian.
All right, I want to give you a live look right now at Cocoa Beach, and right now the eye of Dorian is just about due east of Cocoa Beach right now, possibly just a little south of there, but you can see the surf has picked up, the waves have picked up, and this is what we can expect in the coming hours, overnight and into tomorrow. Good evening. This is Action News Jax special coverage of tracking Hurricane Dorian.
Yep, John Bachman here, Tanika Hughes, First Alert Chief Meteorologist Mike Burrish, and Meteorologist Stacy Garvilla standing by. Mike, within the last half hour or so, we got the latest track on Dorian, and you and Stacy were breaking down some of the changes we've been seeing.
Right, and pretty minimal in that regard. The track is what it is, so to speak. It's going to oscillate slightly. It was about 5 to 8, 9 miles difference from the earlier advisory this afternoon. And you can see here as we zoom in just a little bit, the eye kind of squished a little bit. It doesn't quite have that classic donut and circular eye that we saw just much of the last couple of days when it was a more powerful hurricane. Having said that, it is strong. It's a Category 2 hurricane, and it's going to behave, so to speak, like something that's even stronger because the hurricane has been tense for several days in a row, very near and north of the Bahamas, and now it's going to work its way northwestbound, and that means the very high seas and surf are going to get to the coast of Florida, the northeast coast, our coast, earlier than they might otherwise and more significant than they might be otherwise. And there you can see the eye moving to the northwest now, just about due east of Cape Canaveral, or really close to that point, moving at about 6 miles per hour, gradually to pick up speed tonight and through the day tomorrow, east of Jacksonville during the late afternoon and early evening hours. So at 8 p.m. at about the latitude of the Florida-Georgia border, curling to the northeast, east of Brunswick, and then offshore of the Carolinas and accelerating on off to the north and east. Really an impressive radar presentation here of Dorian. The eye, a large eye, moving to the northwest, and the outer bands trying to move closer to Jacksonville, but many times tropical systems like this, those initial bands dissipate before they actually move in. So it's dry now, southeast Georgia dry, some heavy rain just south of St. Augustine, and we'll start to see the rain increasing across Duval County very late tonight and into tomorrow morning from east to west. And there's one of those heavier bands now, just a little bit offshore, with the main area of heavy rain and storms in that northwest quadrant now getting ready to push onshore. So we'll look at the rainfall amounts that are forecast over the next couple of days, your storm surge, and the wind in the first alert forecast in about 15 minutes.
All right, Mike, St. Johns County leaders expecting some damage from this storm.
Yeah, Action News Jax, Danny Bozzini has moved now from the beach to the pier in St. Augustine.
Yeah, we're here at on St. Augustine Beach right now, where the conditions are definitely starting to pick up. I mean, just take a look out here. It's going to be a little difficult, but I have my flashlight here. Look at these waves. They are crashing so hard underneath this pier right now. And just within the last 5 minutes, it's been coming up on this beach higher and higher. There's no question as to why they closed up this pier right here. They boarded it up, not letting anyone down here. It is a complete ghost town, even here down at the beach, and for good reason. It'll be interesting to see the beach erosion later on this morning and if it gets any worse, but these waves are no joke. These are pretty dangerous, and we'll be out here checking out the conditions, see if they worsen. So make sure you tune back into Action News Jax all night long, live in St. Augustine Beach. Danny Bozzini, CBS47, FOX30 Action News Jax.
All right, schools are making closing announcements across northeast Florida and southeast Georgia. Tomorrow, Columbia County will be the only school district open in our area as we await Hurricane Dorian. And as of right now, Nassau, Duval, Clay, Putnam, St. Johns, Camden, and Glenn counties all will be closed through Thursday. So tomorrow and Thursday. As we continue to get updates, we will update the school closures list there on actionnewsjax.com and on the bottom of your screen right here on CBS47 and FOX30. Colleges in our area continue to extend their closures as well. Edward Waters College will remain closed tomorrow. The University of North Florida and Florida State College Jacksonville campuses are closed through Thursday. Jacksonville University and the College of Coastal Georgia have canceled classes through Friday. Flagler College closed until further notice.
And another concern is the curfew in effect for a lot of our coastal areas, including Jacksonville Beach. And our Megan Moriarty is along Jacksonville Beach, not too far from the Intracoastal Bridge, where JSO is monitoring to make sure people are following their curfew.
Yeah, we're here at the Beach Marine off of Beach Boulevard near the Intracoastal Bridge, and behind me you can see there are some JSO officers there. I'm going to step out of the shot so you can take a look. I'm going to shine my flashlight. There's one right there, and then down the road there are about 2 more cars. I spoke with them, and they basically told me that they're just waiting on the word here. Remember, this bridge does not close until winds sustain 40 miles per hour or more. Now, the winds are definitely beginning to pick up. We can feel it out here. We can see it with some of the palm trees. But if you look over here, I'm going to show you over to where the boats are. We're going to shine a light on here so you can see a little bit better. They're not moving at all. So despite the wind picking up, these boats look like they are pretty steady in place here. We're going to continue to bring you the latest as we get it. For right now, we are live near Beach Boulevard. Megan Moriarty, CBS47, Action News Jax.
All right, Action News Jax Ryan Nelson is at Jacksonville Beach. The tide is coming in. We expect high tide sometime after midnight tonight. And Ryan Nelson is live at the beach for us there.
And my photographer, since our last live shot, we were just looking over at the pier, and it appeared to be pretty dry. Right now we're joining you from just beneath the Jacksonville Beach pier, but you can see that water just coming up right up underneath here. Look at all that sea foam that it's bringing in. And if we look over this way, you can see that water just pushing in right beneath the pier. This is something that we're going to continue to watch closely. Look at this. This water is just coming in right now as we speak. We interviewed someone here just beneath the pier, you know, about an hour ago, and it was completely dry here. The sand was completely dry. That is not the case now. Now, certainly that high tide is something that I spoke to Mike about in the last few minutes or so, something that we are monitoring closely. And be sure to join us not only for the duration of this newscast, but also at 4 a.m. tomorrow morning. Reporting at Jacksonville Beach, Ryan Nelson, CBS47 Fox 30 Action News Jax.
And throughout the night, we've been giving you live looks from Cocoa Beach, where the surf is coming in, wind whipping up. Another live look right now. Ken Tyndall with our sister station, WFTV, is in nearby Cape Canaveral, where he shows us how the conditions are worsening tonight.
Changing for the worse. We're out here on the beach at Cape Canaveral, and you can probably tell the wind is strong and steady, and the rain is blowing sideways. It's really too dark for you to get a look at the coast out here, but we did talk to some people who were out here on the beach earlier, and here's what they had to say about conditions.
The biggest concern would be that the Florida Straits do their job, and it keeps it going up north and makes it not our issue.
Now, one of the big concerns out here is that storm surge and the beach erosion, and we're already seeing signs of erosion. I do have a portable light, so hopefully you can see a little bit better. We've been watching this ridge of erosion here right along the beach, and as the waves continue to come in, this ridge gets steeper. I'm going to walk this way and show you how far up this goes up the beach. We have watched the waves come in as this wind and rain continues to blow, and the sand continues to blow, and this ridge keeps getting deeper. And people here at Cape Canaveral and all along the coast of Brevard County are just hoping for the best when it comes to erosion. They feel lucky that, like, they've dodged a bullet, that the storm is so far out that way, about 100 miles off the coast. And they're just hoping when they wake up in the morning, it won't be much worse than it is now. Live at Cape Canaveral, Ken Tyndall.
And the First Alert Weather Center continues to track Dorian as it inches closer to Florida's east coast. First Alert Chief Meteorologist Mike Burris will have a full report for you coming up in just a couple of minutes.
This is Action News Jax special coverage tracking Dorian.
The storm looked like this morning. This is another view from the International Space Station, but
all right, let's take a look at this is what it looks like from the International Space Station. This is Dorian. Look at this storm. This is very impressive. This is just as it was downgraded to Category 2, but it actually got bigger despite weakening. Pretty impressive picture right there. All right, we have continuing coverage of Dorian as it moves closer to our area. Action News Jax Jamarl Phillips was at Fernandina Beach, where businesses are boarding up.
And John, we're about a block away from the beach here. Me and my photographer, TJ, we rode up and down South Fletcher's Avenue looking for businesses that were boarded up. We didn't find really any, but we found this one here. This is the Dairy Queen. And if you take a look to my right here, you can see that they have their doors boarded up. And if you take a look over here, they have the windows boarded up too. Now, while we were out here, we also saw several police cruisers just monitoring the beach, and that's because there is a curfew set tonight, and that curfew could be lifted as early as 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. Now, since we've been out here, we can tell that the wind has picked up just a little bit. Take a look behind me here at this tree. You can see just little change in the shift of the wind here, but pretty much we're going to stay out here and monitor conditions. Again, the beach is closed right now. There's a curfew, and it could be lifted as, like I said before, as early as 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. And of course, we'll stay out here and monitor conditions throughout the night. Reporting live here in Nassau County, I'm Jamarl Phillips, CBS47, Fox 30, Action News Jax.
And conditions in Central Florida getting worse by the hour. Action News Jax Lorena Inkland was in Titusville for us and filed this report.
Things are really starting to pick up here in Brevard County. The wind getting stronger. We're even getting some bands of rain. Just a moment ago, we got hit with some heavy rain, and that wind is really picking up our SUV and moving it from side to side. And the good news is there were a lot of people out here. I would say dozens of people out here coming and going, taking pictures. But as things started to get worse, I have seen more and more people leave, hopefully going to their shelter. Brevard County authorities are asking people to please stay put, that you will be tempted to venture out, but not to do so because Dorian is here and the dangers are real. There's a mandatory evacuation in place for those low-lying areas, and they're asking people to please heed that warning. Now, take a look. You can see the water is very, very choppy, and the wind definitely blowing things about. I'll take a look at the palm trees there as well. Still a few people out here. Some people have been fishing and things like that, but authorities again asking people to please stay in their safe shelter because again, Dorian is here on the Space Coast. Reporting from Brevard County, Lorena Inkland, CBS47, Fox 30, Action News Jax.
Now certifying Jacksonville's most accurate weather forecast. Action News Jax First Alert Weather.
All right, let's track Dorian sitting about slightly south of due east of Cape Canaveral right now. It's a Category 2 hurricane. And remember, don't let your guard down along the coast in particular because it's a Category 2 versus a 5 a couple of days ago. This will act like a more powerful hurricane. And by that I mean because of the previous intensity over and near the Bahamas, there'll be greater surf and pounding waves on our beaches than would otherwise be expected, as well as a greater storm surge and arriving earlier than what we typically would see with a hurricane like this. Moving generally northwest, turning more northward with time. Pretty confident about that northward turn as it seeks out that little area, that little alleyway where it's on the edge of the Bermuda High that gives it that escape route through the western Atlantic just a little bit east of Jacksonville. That's really critical for us, of course. Doesn't help much the Carolinas, where there'll be a pretty significant hit here anywhere from about Myrtle Beach approximately to the Outer Banks during the night Thursday and into Friday as the storm then heads out to the West Atlantic. So here's the hurricane now and some of the wind reports. This is kind of interesting. You'll see the winds bouncing around a little bit as the measurements change. Notice Freeport at the bottom there in the Bahamas. No report there because the weather gauge there, weather instruments broken from the hurricane hit of the last couple of days. Winds, some of the buoys here, 50 miles per hour, sustained winds now just offshore of Cape Canaveral. We have a 60 to 65 mile per hour wind sustained in the northeast quadrant of the hurricane. Again, a buoy there. And then as we head northward up the coast, of course, the winds aren't as strong yet, but we're still looking at 20 to 30 sustained winds. NAS Jax to St. Augustine, Brunswick still only blowing at about 15 miles per hour. But obviously, as the hurricane heads northwestbound, those winds are going to increase area-wide. It's really very quiet otherwise. It's breezy, but it's dry for the metro area, southeastern Georgia, and virtually all of northeastern Florida, and will be dry for at least several more hours. There's an intense band here offshore, but this is diving more south-southwest right now on the backside of Dorian, so it's going to have to get quite a ways north yet before the majority of these bands move overhead. And at that point, then, the winds really start to increase. There'll be the higher risk for isolated tornadoes and the localized flooding, too, as the eye is really widened now over the last few hours, moving northwest. And when it gets that wide, when those hurricane eyes get that wide, you're typically talking about a hurricane that's about ready to go steady state more than anything else. I mentioned the storm surge, the potential for flooding, certainly heavy rain, Stacy, too, as Dorian gets closer.
Well, you just saw that radar image there, too, showing what's headed this way. And once again, some of our highest amounts of rain will be seen along our coastal counties. That's why the green is showing a flash flood watch that is in effect through Thursday morning for all the counties in green there. And let's show you why. Here's some of the radar estimated rainfall amounts as we head in the forecast model. So you can see the red here. That's right along the coast. Some of the red indicating areas like Fernandina Beach, Brunswick could see up to about 6 or 7 or plus inches. In general, I think we'll see anywhere from about 2 to 4 plus inches along I-95 and then points just off to the west. But as you head farther inland, those rainfall amounts will really begin to drop off there. Let's also talk a little bit about a wind forecast too, because we've got several models indicating that we will be dealing with those tropical storm force wind gusts through much of the day tomorrow. Now, this is for Jacksonville Beach. These are 3 different models, all in agreement that we have tropical storm force winds really that will be peaking as we head through about 3, 4, 7 o'clock in the afternoon, so mid-afternoon into the early evening hours there for some of those peak sustained winds. Of course, we will be dealing with higher gusts, and it's possible that we even see a few hurricane force wind gusts. So that would just be sporadic here and there, and I think the better chance will be in areas like St. Augustine. Once again, you're looking at a model wind forecast of some of those sustained winds really peaking as we head throughout the afternoon and early evening hours. Mike.
Yeah, Stacy, those sustained winds at 40 miles per hour, tropical storm force key for the bridges, and if this verifies, then that means the intercoastal and the beaches especially, we'd see several bridges closed tomorrow, perhaps for a prolonged period. Not so much inland for the most part, although there may be periods where they have to shut them down, because look at these winds blowing tomorrow morning through the noon hour, 40 to 50 miles per hour at the beaches, and then you go inland, and Jacksonville is at 30 to 35 miles per hour. So it's quite a difference, and then you go inland even more, and it's far, far less, and that will be true into early Thursday morning. And then by Thursday afternoon, it's an offshore wind that will clean things up considerably. Winds will come out of the west. Surfers will enjoy that, but it'll still be dangerous to be in the water, and the temperatures soar. We'll be to the 90s Thursday, Friday, right through your weekend, but it will be dry. There'll be plenty of sunshine. ActionNewsJax.com, updated weather information on tropics, and talking the tropics with Mike, and my tweets at Mike First Alert round the clock.
Well, St. Johns County officials say they expect flooding along the St. Augustine Bayfront. Action News Jax Russell Colburn is in the First Alert Storm Tracker and see how the historic district is using the lessons from Hurricane Matthew to prepare.
Guys, we're in the First Alert Storm Tracker driving along the city of St. Augustine. We can give you a look outside. You can see the flashing lights up there. We have a police presence. We've seen them all around near the Bridge of Lions, making the determination when to close that bridge. But look at this. That's the bread and breakfast we covered a few years ago where the water was rushing in. Now they are all boarded up, all the businesses along here taking heed of what we saw during Hurricane Matthew. And we can bring up that video when that water was just rushing over the seawall. That seawall just no match for the waves that were created in the bay. So people here have used that as a lesson, and they're hoping they don't see a repeat of that. If we come back out here, more businesses boarded up, sandbags at the base of the ground there, just taking every precaution they can ahead of this storm. I can tell you we have started to see effects in this area of Dorian. The First Alert Weather Team saying the gusts are upwards of 30 miles per hour or higher, and the water in the bay has also gotten pretty choppy. This area, of course, under a mandatory evacuation, so it's definitely time for people to go to their safe place and hunker down. In St. Augustine, Russell Colburn, CBS47, FOX30 Action News Jax.
Inside Hurricane Dorian, how hurricane hunters help determine where a storm like Dorian is going. That's coming up next.
This is Action News Jax special coverage tracking Dorian.
Action News Jax got a look inside of Hurricane Dorian. Meteorologist Tony Sadiku from our sister station WSOC in Charlotte took to the skies to catch a glimpse of the inside of the storm with the hurricane hunters.
Pressure now 922 millibars, 922. Surface wind speeds 135 knots, weakening a bit. That's good news.
After becoming the strongest hurricane ever to make landfall in the Bahamas, Dorian's ferocious winds are finally backing down.
Might get a little bumpy here for just a sec.
At this point in our flight, Dorian was still a raging Category 4.
So you can grab a hold of something and not that yellow handle above your head.
Lieutenant Colonel Jeff Ragusa, the flight commander on this mission into Dorian.
This is where the loadmaster loads the dropsod and launches it into the hurricane. It has a sensor that can send back real-time information on a storm's pressure, wind, and location.
The weather officer directs the pilot where to fly to gather these measurements.
Give me 10 right. 10 right.
The navigator makes sure it's safe to fly there.
It looked like about 4 miles. After you roll out, it's going to have that little one red cell. Do you want to go through that or go around it? I'm not picking up anything super
This is a very sturdy aircraft, but it's still dangerous.
The pilot uses a technique called crabbing to punch through the eye wall where the strongest winds are.
I want to fly a straight line into the eye, so I have to take the airplane, turn it into the wind, and I'm going to fly sideways to get to that center point.
On the other side of the intense wind and rain.
There are times where we're just kind of hanging on, which is unnerving to a pilot.
Clear blue skies, an indication of a major pressure change. They do this 4 times through the eye wall, the stakes high with each penetration.
I think if my wife was too worried about it, she wouldn't let me do it.
But for the few who can call themselves hurricane hunters, they say there's nothing like it. With photojournalist Chris Johnson, I'm meteorologist Tony Sadiku, Channel 9 Eyewitness News.
And Dorian continuing to make its move northwestbound now to the east of Florida. We'll see that movement now. It's well to the southeast of Daytona Beach, a little bit east of Cape Canaveral. Winds of around 110 miles per hour. Certainly can see the eye, but it's not near as well developed as what we had a few days ago. Thankfully, that track taking it to the east offshore really hasn't changed much over the last day or so. It oscillates slightly anywhere from about 75 to 90 to 95 miles offshore with an average of about 80 to 85 miles offshore through tomorrow afternoon and through about midnight. And by early Thursday morning, about this time tomorrow night, we will be on the south and west side and conditions rapidly improving, especially from a rainfall standpoint. It'll take a little bit longer for the winds to die down. And here is the forecast for the strongest winds, perhaps reaching 30 to 40 miles per hour downtown Jax as early as about 8 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. Jax Beach, Ponte Vedra Beach, St. Augustine, Fernandina Beach, and Brunswick should all have at one point or another sustained tropical storm force winds, which would shut down the bridges at least at the intercoastal and the beaches, and lasting in many cases anywhere from about 9 to as long as 12 hours, or in a few places even a little bit longer than that. More, of course, throughout the night. We'll keep you updated from the First Alert Weather Center. Round the clock, Garrett Beanbaugh here. First thing in the morning, I'll be on the radio side, News 104.5 WOKV.
All right, Mike, and we will be tracking Dorian through the night, and we'll be back on TV on CBS47 and FOX30. Our special coverage of tracking Dorian begins at 4 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Yeah, and follow us on our online platforms. We'll be tweeting and updating throughout the night. And Mike and Stacey, any final thoughts as we head into tomorrow?
Well, I think it's status quo. That's the good news. It's still going to be a beating for the beaches, but inland areas will not have it near as significant, at least west of I-95. And the heaviest rain bands are still hours away, but by about sunrise or shortly thereafter, we'll be moving in.
We'll know Dorian's here when we wake up in the morning.
Yeah, and if not shortly thereafter, and there will be an isolated tornado threat along with the strong winds and the potential for flooding.
Yeah, and I know, Stacey, you've been stressing the timeline on those winds and when different places will feel those impacts.
Yes, that's just it. You know, most of the winds are going to be felt tomorrow and then early Thursday, and then this is finally out of here and we're back to the heat. So we can just get through tomorrow and early Thursday.
Back to the heat. Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much for joining us on WJAX and WFOX TV.
Well, appreciate you for hanging in there with us. Again, follow our crews. They'll be tweeting throughout the night. Danny Bozzini, Megan Moriarty, Jamarlo Phillips, Ryan Nelson. They're posted. We're going to add to the team Dawn, Letitia, Phil, Garrett.
They'll be here at 4.
Maritza, Ross. The one thing we'd say, remember, stay calm and cool and collected over the next 24 hours. Things will change pretty dramatically as we go through the day tomorrow.
All right. Have a good night. We'll leave you with some scenes from some of our live cameras as we continue to keep an eye on Hurricane Dorian.